doing more than what they're comfortable doing, number one. Everyone wants to make a good impression. Everybody wants to be able to be perceived as they're doing a good job or they were a good hire. Now, with that, you also have to understand your own particular limitations, whether because your training before you came into your job, your educational background. What you need to do is make sure, as we talked to before, is have some kind of knowing what the hierarchy is within the institution and what your mentor is, what individuals you can turn to for help during your initial honeymoon period of time. And the other thing is, again, I talked about this earlier, I think, perception, right? You may be perceiving that you're just doing really great. I give a lot of national talks, and sometimes I get dressed, I go out on the stage, and I'm talking, and my wife sees my talk. She goes, "Are you out of your mind? What were you doing wearing that tie with that coat?" Like, I thought I was looking pretty good, but she says, no. So it's saying perception, right? And when I do quarterly evaluations for staff, what I had done in the past, the very first thing I do is say, what kind of job do you think you're doing? What's your perception? Instead of saying, hey, this, and this. And again, I want to make sure they have good insight of an actual perception of their performance versus their self-perception, right? And then I talk to them and say, well, I think you're pretty much on the mark on this, but you're way off the mark on this. So it's the same thing with new grads during their honeymoon position. They may be walking around thinking, this is great, whereas that may not be the case at all. The other aspect of it, and you have availability to make, and you hear this all the time, make a first impression only one time. I'll exemplify this, two different approaches for the same issue. You may be writing an order for something, and a new nurse may challenge you and go, hey, are you sure about this, right? Two ways to go, right? The first person can go, I wrote it, you deliver it. End of story, right? Which is terrible way of approach. Why is that terrible? First of all, you don't want to be that guy or that girl, right? Because now you're a jerk, number one. And number two, that nurse is going to tell all her friend nurses, like, that person's a jerk.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I was going to say, what's happening at the nurse's station after that scenario that you just...
You're dead in the water. You're gone. You might as well resign that day, because if you upset the nurses, believe me, nurses are there and they're incredible. They're probably the most important member of the healthcare team, as far as they're the ones that are actually doing the bedside taking care of patients, right? And I will tell you, nurses have saved my butt innumerable times over the years, okay? So I bow down to nurses every day. So get back on that exemplification, just saying I told you so. I said the way you should handle that is that gives you a chance for education. Number one, it's a two-road, right? You can say to the nurse, hey, I wrote this order because of this, and this. That may educate the nurse that, gee, I didn't know that. That makes good sense. And then conversely, the nurse is saying, hey, that person knows what they're talking about, right? And then you have the label, hey, that person's really great to work with. They'll ask you questions, they'll answer your questions and things of that nature. And you develop that kind of relationship. But a lot of times people have that kind of response because I said so. Number one, because they don't know the correct answer. And number two, they're insecure. And instead of saying, gee, it's okay to say, I don't know and I'm not really sure, versus, hey, thank you. I did write the wrong order. I really appreciate that. So those are the kind of things you don't want to do, number one. Number two, you also have to be insightful of what you think your shortcomings are and your strong points. And saying, because things are going to happen that you're not going to be aware of until you actually get into the job environment. But knowing that after the fact, saying, gee, I'm not doing well with this stress or that stress, or gee, I was trying to get this patient admitted to the hospital and got a lot of pushback, Okay, and you thought, why did you think got pushback and things of that nature? And just things that you learn. But then identify what issues you're having, talk to somebody about what those issues are, and then move forward and learn from those experiences.